there will be an unveiling of a World War I memorial, which will be taking place by the parade ring in around about 10 minutes' time. So if you are here and you'd like to come towards the parade ring, there will be an unveiling of a memorial, and we'll be chatting with Kenneth Bannerman from the Airfields of Britain Conservation Trust. You see the monument is going to be unveiled very, very shortly. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Kenneth here. And just tell us a little bit more about how important these monuments are.
These monuments and our airfields in general, both active and disused throughout the UK, are phenomenally important beyond all belief. Suffice to say that if airfields never existed in this country, our lives would be immeasurably poorer, and we just can't afford to lose them in all sorts of ways. And but as I recognised when I was a youngster, over 50 years ago now, that our airfields in general were also being none too well treated, both they and all the very brave and dedicated people who'd served at them. And it was just a classic case of something had to be done. So with this national charity that I'm now the head of, it's not just memorials we do, but we operate in a very wide front, raising general public awareness, saving airfields and so on. And since the charity formed in 2006, it's fair to say that we're unquestionably making a real difference in improving society for the betterment of all.
And Kenneth, how many other monuments are going to be unveiled?
Well, we unveiled one yesterday, I'm happy to report very successfully, at Hutton Cranswick Airfield near Driffield. And then after today, we will be unveiling a third memorial at Snaith Airfield, former bomber airfield near Goole. So we've now erected well over 200 memorials, going as fast as we can.
And I'm also delighted to say we've got Ruth Beckett here as well, who's going to tell us a little bit more about this. So during World War I, what role did the aircraft and airfields play, and how important were they during the war?
I think if we compare air warfare during the First World War with the Second World War, we have to say that it was on a much smaller scale. But what is amazing is the speed with which things happen. 1903, the Wright brothers flew their way into history. Just a few years later, we have an aerodrome at Beverley, which is absolutely incredible, the speed with which it developed.
And what led to the establishment of the Beverley Aerodrome?
Well, initially there was a fear that this part of Yorkshire would be seriously affected by Zeppelin raids in Hull. So it was set up initially for reasons of defence. But when the Zeppelin raid failed to materialise on the scale that was anticipated, it very, very soon became a training centre.
And Ruth, what did we know about the pilots who flew out of Beverley Aerodrome during the First World War?
Well, we're very, very lucky in that, we have with us today the gentleman from Bishop Burton who researched all the names on a memorial plaque in Bishop Burton Church. So we have a history already there, but the newspapers carried a lot of information. For example, there was a Scottish pilot, Robert Grossart, who was the first person to build a full-scale aeroplane in Scotland. We are lucky with the newspapers and the research that's been done to be able to find a lot out about the people.
There was also a Canadian presence at the airfield. Tell us more about their involvement.
The main presence of the Canadian pilots was they were being trained to build up the Air Force in Canada. So they were very, very much part of the training initiative here in Beverley.
And what happened to the Beverley Aerodrome at the end of the First World War?
To a large extent, it was forgotten. If you look at newspaper coverage of race meetings in 1920, there is just a single reference to the aerodrome, and it was where the racecourse track had actually been altered. So it was largely forgotten.
Well, Ruth, thank you very much for informing us more about that. And delighted to say that the memorial is going to be unveiled.
Well, thank you very much again for attending, and I'll now hand over to Mr. Charles Maxted, who no doubt would like to say something.
Well, probably no microphone, is there?
Yeah, well, I've got one here, yes.
Nobody wants to hear from me anyway, but we're delighted to have you here today anyway. Most people probably didn't know that this was an airfield in the First World War. That's my crutch con, and I was here then. But we didn't know this actually for some time, but it's become apparent in the recent years, and it's quite extraordinary really. But when digging the foundations and so on for the new area up there, new hostel up there, and the new stables, of course we found all sorts of things that were from the days when the RAF were here, in the very early days, of course. And as you say, this was a training place, I think.
Yes, fighters and trainers.
Fighters and trainers, yes. But unfortunately, the planes didn't go very far in those days, of course. But anyway, we're delighted to be associated with it, and very honoured that we should be placing a memorial here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And therefore, Mr. Maxton and I are delighted to be unveiling this memorial to yet another of Britain's top historical and physical assets. In this case, the first Beverley airfield. Thank you all very much.
Right, we'll try and get this off. There we are. Thank you very much.